Already? We're doing this already, Disney? Apparently, it was 626 Day on Thursday just gone. Of course, everyone knows that holiday special. And of course, Disney took the opportunity to presumably sell some discounted merchandise, but also announce already a Lilo and Stitch 2, which at this point I presume will release a few weeks after How to Train Your Dragon 2. That's all there is these days. Just every couple of years, have a Chris Sanders, Dean DeBlois double feature, and also a Pixar movie that flopped swiftly afterwards. Money talks, particularly at the House of Mouse, and Lilo and Stitch has so far made over $914 million. It's not even actually at that golden $1 billion mark yet, but screw it, let's make a whole nother one. Despite my and all sorts of fans' thoughts that this is just a terrible movie, with a distinctively mixed reception overall, it's still been a huge success for Disney, so of course a sequel's on the way. Cinema is dead. And it's not just the box office that they're talking about here to justify all this, because just last year with the movie Taken Out, they reportedly made $2.6 billion in global sales of Lilo and Stitch themed consumer products. This is actually bigger than the movie, so I guess I concede. Oh god. It's a future with no Jumba though. But I guess if you do add on an actual new movie and probably all sorts of new merchandise and just a whole new marketing campaign in general, yeah, you can probably guess what those numbers may be this year. Clearly, Stitch is just an absolute financial vacuum, and Team Disney know it. And learning from their mistakes, this is going to be a direct sequel to a remake this time, rather than a prequel like Mufasa, but it does open up a lot of questions. I mean, for a start, we don't actually know for certain it's a sequel. It could well be some sort of strange prequel where we have a child Jumba create Stitch and grow up with him just so we get some of that beloved character back, adding depth to the otherwise hollow betrayal we saw in the first movie. Please don't do that, though. No, but really, there are a few ways they could go about this. Let's talk about it. Because you see, I don't know how well known this is. I certainly inhaled a lot of it as a kid, because there are, of course, already a few sequels to Lilo and Stitch already out there. For one, there is already a Lilo and Stitch 2, or as it's known in full, Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch Has a Glitch. And I think you can guess the premise from there if you haven't seen it. And this would be interesting to adapt, as I don't actually think we've seen a remake of the straight-to-home sequels before. Considering a lot of them aren't really that good, I guess it's not a surprise they haven't been doing it, but it is new territory to rip out the old remake central. In the Stitch Has a Glitch movie, the new alien additions to the family are settling into their new lives, be that Stitch himself or the cool uncles Pleakley and Jumba. Yeah, that's gonna be fun to adapt without him. And in fact, he's quite an integral part, as in this story, Jumba's kind of the guy who explains everything that Stitch is going through and has to devise the actual solution, so kind of be hard to do that without him round the house. He is the creator of Stitch after all. How on earth is this sequel gonna go on? They just have to wing it without knowing that? But that's still one route, I guess. The actual glitch in question was a growing sense of anger that they had to learn how to cool down on him. Kind of the same ideas as the first movie in Destruction. So doing a version where he is just getting irrationally angry and they have to fix it without their creator to know how it works is almost a conflict building that they could work with. You also don't need to really. But that being said, there are some other options in the stories of Lilo and Stitch, because there is another sequel that came out before Lilo and Stitch 2. I know, it doesn't make sense. These direct-to-VHSs were a real rabbit hole of mess back in the day for Disney. Then prepare yourselves, as the actual movie was called Stitch the Movie. What was the first movie then? Like, this one has a more Stitch-centric story, but like, Lilo's still very much a part of it. Anyway, I can't already call this logic, but this one was actually the launching pad for the Lilo and Stitch TV series. So you could say this is the movie of the TV series, but then that came out before the TV launch, so I don't really know. And as much as I don't really know what the plan was with the titling strategy, the outcome was essentially Lilo and Stitch's version of Pokemon. Since Stitch is experiment 626, this was all about exploring the other 625 experiments before Stitch. Though I'm not sure if the series ever got around to all of them. My personal favorite was Experiment 625, who just loved making damn sandwiches. That'll do. But of course, if they were to go down this route, we could get some serious lore building and consequently an absolute merchandising bonanza. I mean, that's 625 more plushies to sell. Come on, capitalism, do your thing. To me, this wouldn't really be the surprising move. Disney could legit have their Pokemon equivalent with a franchise that's already making $2.5 $1.5 billion a year. It seems like a no-brainer for them at this point. And there is no shame to be had, since they're clearly far beyond that. Nonetheless, it would be interesting to start introducing the other experiments, I guess. Again, they've kind of made it difficult by severing their creator from the rest of the core cast, whilst also severing one of their co-directors from the core crew cast, in a meta sense there. But maybe as the terrible villain that Jumba's now positioned as, he's the one sending them to Earth to cause chaos or something. Effectively replacing Dr. Hamsetterville in the process, because replacing Gantu wasn't enough. I mean, in Stitch the movie, the emotional hook is that they kidnap Jumba, which no one would care about in the live-action version. By the way, apparently Gantu's already rumored to be lined up for the sequel, which I'd wager is just another Backlash-led decision. Hell, they'll redeem Jumba by the end of the sequel as well. Poorly matched Zach Galifianakis voice and all. Hello there, yes, you've made it halfway through. Come subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you. It's good to hear that they heard the complaints, and then went on to blast through another movie through it anyway. Even still, there's at least 2 distinct strands of franchises to take from for this sequel. Though, not that you want to start with this one, but there is actually another Lilo and Stitch movie out there. It's already a growing franchise apparently. But there is another one, that being Leroy and Stitch. Effectively being a conclusion to the TV series, introducing Leroy. Experiment 629, so an experiment more advanced than Stitch. Kinda giving me Shadow the Hedgehog vibes, so maybe that can be the third movie that I'm just presuming will happen regardless of the sequel's quality. I mean, the first one was trash, so of course it's gonna be more no matter what we think. And Leroy and Stitch also apparently ends with a big team up of all the experiments as well, so definitely a third movie vibe. Or of course, there is the other option to go with, which is outright just entirely original story. I mean, they seemed so keen to change the fundamentals of the original without even poking one of the original creators for some, input like the How to Train Your Dragon movie did. So why not just give them a blank page to work with this time and dig the movie even more down into the dirt? We can have 90 minutes of Nani going through college whilst attending parenting classes to have Lilo handed back to her via the government. Doesn't that sound fun? I reckon it'll be some extraterrestrial event will obviously kick off the central plot, particularly if Gantu is indeed coming into the picture purely for damage control. No idea what Gantu will be doing without his previous role established, but maybe he's trying to sell Stitch on the alien black market or something, I don't really know. Maybe he even swaps with Jumba, becoming the cool uncle Zach Galifianakis never really could. Whatever they do, I currently could not care less. Because ultimately, as we all know, this is just following up on a movie that let us all down. Even after watching Snow White earlier this year, I for some reason thought that this live-action remake would be different. Turns out, absolutely not. They just put far more effort into the marketing campaign to hype everyone up on this occasion, and all of that money came out of the Elio budget, I bet, to go straight into Stitch. I mean, come on, the blue guy was still in the goddamn theaters when you sent out that poor little boy. Did they learn nothing from when they released that Han Solo movie 2 weeks after Infinity War of all timings? But yes, in a year where supposedly Disney's about to make a comeback according to themselves, the vast majority of their releases have just been huge disappointments on the quality. And all but one haven't done that well financially either, this being that one exception. Which is why we'll probably end up with a 6-movie saga from this franchise soon enough. It's interesting to see 2 remakes come out so close together, based on originals by the same directing team, that being Chris Sanders and Dean DeBlois, but namely as well, you can really see the contrast between what Disney are getting wrong and DreamWorks got right on their first go, with 2 movies that do share similarities beyond their directors. Because yes, Toothless and Stitch aren't completely dissimilar facial designs either. But also, if you rename How to Train Your Dragon as Hiccup and Toothless, you can see how the core relationship in both movies treads a similar path. That being a young audience identification figure forging a friendship with a creature from another world. This collision of characters from different worlds being a theme that Sanders would continue exploring in The Wild Robot. But with those similarities in there, right down to both of them being from the same creative team, unfavorable comparisons are basically invited. And whilst How to Train Your Dragon doesn't reinvent the wheel, it is by and large the same movie. It is more true to the themes and spirit of the original. In Lilo and Stitch, though I do appreciate the core relationship of Lilo and Stitch, it's generally well captured, a lot of the spirit of that original is lost. And honestly, the redraft of Jumba is a big part of that. The fact that he was trying to catch Stitch, whilst also unwittingly emotionally investing in him, gave us a more complex character that showed there was more than one side to everyone. If anything, Stitch and his emotional arc could be a reflection of his creators, with Jumba's role in those sequels continuing to be interesting, trying to be part of this family whilst his shady past constantly catches up with him. The opportunity for any of that, though, seems gone in this version. He made it very clear that he doesn't care about any of that, blowing up a bunch of photos of Lilo's dead parents. They didn't just make him straight up evil, they made him uninteresting in the process. All that curiosity of an outer space scientist completely gone. He's just there to capture the alien and get out. He acts way more like a thug than someone who was able to create anything. Namely because that was Captain Gantu's character, and they got rid of him. And I think it's decisions like that that just show one of the core elements that makes these two companies tick, where DreamWorks reached out to their original director to say, hey, you want to rework that magic again? And Disney didn't even let them know they were making a remake. And I would certainly be surprised if they told them about this sequel too. Because all of it, honestly, is just a spit on the face of the original. So yes, Lilo and Stitch Remake 2 is coming. But I don't expect anything from it beyond a 2-hour advert for plushies and pajamas. This is just what Disney do these days. For now, I'd best end it off there. My name's been Daz. Thank you very much for reaching the end of this video. What's your pitch for Lilo and Stitch 2? What would you possibly do? You want to copy one of the sequels that they've already made, ruin the VHS originals, or you want to see an actual original story? All of it's terrible, I'll be honest, all of it. And I shall see you all in a little bit. Cheerio!